Now you see me every day, living life, feeling safe. And every video that I drop make you feel some type of way. All I'm speaking on is facts about your homies in them gates. You trying to kill your homie, yet I'm trying to set them straight. You ain't been in my position, spilling blood up in the tank, up against an opposition.
Hey, yo, what's good with everybody, man? I hope everybody's having a productive day, feeling blessed. And like I always say, it's one life, one chance. We only got one chance to do this right. Let's get it done. With that being said, man, y'all seen the thumbnail. We're talking about two big major busts by the Mexican drug cartel. And obviously, it's always going to come out of Southern California. Southern California just happens to be a big region where a lot of Mexican drug cartels are going to battle for that area. And I mean multiple. There's a lot of them. So let's get right into the video because I got an important message when it comes to this video. This is a Los Angeles drug bust. It took place with a brother and sister, Priscilla Gomez and Omar Gomez. And they were labeled as drug carriers. And they were the ones responsible for distributing a lot of drugs and narcotics, mostly out of Southern California in the city of Los Angeles, mainly Torrance, and distributing it from there all across the United States to other different drug cartel networks. And they got busted with 50 pounds of fentanyl. 50 pounds. Now, mind you, if you listen to the press conference, it basically says that there was a single dose per every Los Angeles resident. A single dose of fentanyl that could have killed a single resident in Los Angeles. Over $14 million worth of fentanyl drugs. And we're talking about enough drugs to kill one person out of each resident in Los Angeles. Every household, one person. That's damaging and that is scary. Because, like I said, there's been overdoses with drugs before fentanyl came into effect and everything started getting cut with fentanyl. We've heard about drug overdoses, right? But now you'll hear drug overdoses with coke, with pills, anything that is cut with. And to be honest with you, one of the Mexican drug cartels these guys were associates. The brother and sister were associates as long as with the other guy that got busted. He's looking at 36 years. The brother and sister are looking at 24 years if they're convicted for these crimes. Because they had an anonymous tip, a confidential information that the sister was the one really doing all the drug running from Mexico to Los Angeles, and her and her brother were distributing it from there. They got caught with a lot of pounds, especially fentanyl. $14 million worth of street network value. That is a lot of money. Now imagine if they didn't get busted and all that money made it to its destination, got distributed, got sold, and the profit was collected and they made it back to Mexico. Mexican drug cartels that are working with China. And let's not forget, man, they just had a meeting with China at a resort, at some casino or resort in Mexico, and a big old shootout happened with rival cartels. Chinese people were involved. The country of China is really involved. China and the Mexican drug cartels together, an alliance, that is real dangerous. That's why there's a part of me that listens to the Trump administration and declaring that, drug cartels as street terrorisms and organizational terrorism, just terrorist groups, period. Yeah, we're going to see a lot in the news media about drug busts by the DEA, by the ATF, by the FBI. I don't think it's going to make a difference because we're busting them here in the United States. We're not really taking that war to Mexico. We're not sending our military over there. I've yet to read that. Maybe, maybe not. But I have like 5 or 6 more articles that I'm going to bring up and I'm going to, elaborate on and talk about with you guys in the next coming week, because these are matters of discussions that are of the utmost importance because it has to do with, supply and demand, American money, American soil, and American people that are addicted to drugs. So $14 million would have made it back to Mexico, and that's a big, that don't seem like a lot of money to them because they make that on a daily, but $14 million, man, is powerful. That's a lot of money. And it trips me out that, American people, we got to struggle. The rich get rich, the poor get poor, but, it's these guys that make these corridos, that have corridos about them, that are fantasies, that are, realities that people want to live. These guys don't got to do nothing besides murder, exert brutality, and sell drugs that are killing hundreds and thousands of people and overdoses every year, and they're living the luxurious life. But our rich get richer and we get poorer, right? That took place. And then you have Imperial Valley, this bust right here that you just see just took place. We're talking about the Beltran Leyva cartel, another powerful drug cartel. And one of their leaders just got out and got sent right back to Mexico and assumed power from that cartel. They got busted. 22 defendants total. 10 were arrested, 12 are still on the run as fugitives. They got busted in Mexico, some of them in San Diego, some of them in Colorado, Iowa, and Arizona. Mostly down south on the Imperial Valley. Now, mind you, they moved a ton of drugs a month. And this investigation just wasn't overnight. We're talking about a 1.5 year long investigation that these guys were monitored. And they were aware of all the drugs being sent from Mexico over here. A ton a month. These dudes got caught with a ton. 1,000 pounds of fentanyl. 1,650 was the exact amount of fentanyl pills. Then we're talking about cocaine. Only a couple of guns, but $250,000 in cash. All these dudes are busted. 12 are still on the run. 12 are still being located. And you know, the news media paints this narrative, especially like somebody like me that reads these kind of articles. I'm looking at it like, okay, you're telling me you busted a ton of drugs, which is a lot. I mean, a lot. If you read the article like I'm displaying across the screen, you're going to see the amount of drugs that was confiscated. That is a lot for this network. And these are the names, and this is a lot of people that got busted in this case. But it's a small blow to the ego of the Mexican drug cartel. These guys can't be stopped. These guys just, in numbers, bro, they just fluctuate. They multiply. Rats and roaches, bro. They just breed these guys left and right. So, yeah, in the Americans' eyes, in our eyes, 22 people, yeah, got arrested. Man, that's a ton of drugs they just confiscated in this trailer at this plot right here. They even have a gold AK-47 and a gold AR-15 and $250,000 in cash was all confiscated. Seems like a big deal. Seems like a big buzz. But the message in this video, me personally, and I just talked about it with some other people. Look, I'm a former addict, so I know what drugs can do to you. I know how you can destroy yourself. And that's a choice that a lot of drug addicts really make. We all made it ourselves. I was strung out on that needle. I was addicted to heroin for 8 years. Meth too. This was before fentanyl came into play and was really killing people. Dude, I hear about so many overdoses in prison. It's not even funny no more. I hear about the overdoses on the streets. How many kids are taking these party pills and playing with these recreational narcotics for fun, not knowing what it's cut with. Sure enough, bro, you'll see overdose after overdose after overdose of teenagers now because they're popping pills. Just like music tells them to pop pills, just like their friends tell them to pop pills. It's getting in the hands of the wrong people. See, drug addicts and communities used to be a small circle. You just knew where the drug addicts were at. You knew they hung out in the same area. Now everybody's getting addicted to them. There was a year in America where it was over 100,000 overdoses of fentanyl pills that the cartels were responsible for, right? That is a big deal. Big deal. Now, mind you, you can always blame the drug addict for making the choice to indulge in drugs. I will always blame myself. You know, I didn't force a drug dealer to sell to me. That's his hustle. I buy it. I indulge. I hurt my body. I hurt myself. And thankfully, I survived, you know, being a drug addict all these years without dying. Some people haven't had that chance. Some people died from drug overdoses. And now these guys across that border decided to say, we found something even more powerful and more addicting. We're going to make even more money off that. So mind you, the drug addicts are going to be drug addicts and only think about drugs. They're not thinking that these guys want to make a profit off your hurt and your misery and your pain and your addiction. They just want to get rich, fund their cartel, live good, mess with prostitutes, make corridos about them, have all these parties with all these singers. Yes, that's what they're doing. They don't care about the deaths of American people or anybody across the United States or anybody across the world. They just want to become millionaires. And they don't care who dies. They don't care about your addiction. Just like you as an addict yourself don't care about your addiction. So you're hurting a lot of people by providing your own money to these guys because these guys are going to continue to hurt people for power and money while you're hurting yourself for drugs and just, you know, being addicted to a substance that once you get addicted to it, it's hard to kick it. Trust me, I kicked it, but it's hard. We can't give these guys any more power. Because the Trump administration declared these guys as a terrorist group don't mean that This is where it starts. This is where our fight starts. The war on drugs is serious now. The war on drugs should have always been serious. And people always point it out in the comment section, and I've seen TV shows like Snowfall and Big Meats and everything else where they say oftentimes the government's involved turn a blind eye to make a profit. Yeah, the damage is done. We appointed too many people into positions of powers that have jobs that salary only means $166,000 a year, but yet they got their net worth is like 20-30 million. All our politicians are corrupt. So I'm pretty sure all our politicians don't really take the war on drugs serious. They just say it. They make it a point. Judges make it a point to make a ruling for 10, 20, 30 years. That's all slap on the wrist for Mexican drug cartels when most of the time we're just going to extradite them back to Mexico. Even though in this article right here, you got the one dude that killed a DEA agent 29 years later gets extradited to the United States to pay for his crimes. So it wasn't serious for 29 years. You killed a DEA agent. They housed you in Mexico. You're in prison in Mexico still living like a kingpin. But finally, we want to make an example. So we're going to extradite you as well as 20-something other Mexican drug cartels that were wanted, that want to be tried in the court of law in the United States. And you can come live in our prisons and you're not going to be kingpins no more. You're going to be regular inmates. But that's false. These guys come to American prisons and still establish power, still establish money, still establish networks. You're basically saying, we're going to take all these Mexican drug kingpins from Mexico, we're going to house them in the United States, as if they can't get phones, as if they won't develop any type of influence on the yard. You're putting them in the United States where it's a hell of a lot easier for them to be in contact with the networks of their drug cartels that they're associated with to continue to network and do business right there. Because let's face it, our prison system's really not that strict. I hear so many stories about the federal penal system. Dudes are living good. Dudes are living luxury. You can get a phone. You can get whatever. There's power that does exist in the federal penal system. You're not really putting these guys out of a position of power. You're just repositioning the position of power. One from Mexico. Now they're in a position of power in the United States. So you're really doing any damage extraditing them to the United States? Yeah, there's a lot more power in Mexico, but over here they still got power. So what difference does it really make? But the point I'm making in this video is this. You got these drug cartels that are continuously getting busted, and we can see it all over the news media. Not just in California, Colorado, Idaho, Iowa, all across the United States, right? But we already know our judicial system is stupid. There's so much leniency for certain crimes, but they're harsh on different crimes like murders and gang murders. That'll get you a life without the possibility of parole. But, chomos and pedos get 7-10 years. Well, drug dealers, oh, man, you sold all these pounds all these years, but we only caught you with this amount of pounds. You could take 10 years in prison. Hopefully you learn your lesson. Certain states have serious offenses and serious sentences for drug offenses, right? But I think if you're a drug dealer, whether you're a rapper wanted to be a drug dealer, whether you're a drug dealer that became a rapper that's still drug dealing, and you're inspiring all these young kids to want to be drug dealers and kingpins, anybody that wants to sell drugs, period. Especially if it's fentanyl. If it's fentanyl, that drug's killing a lot of people and hurting a lot of people, and it's taking a lot of people's lives. And some of these kids that are just being teenagers like the rest of us that want to have parties, that want to have fun, that, indulge in some type of recreational activity for memories and just having a good time, not knowing the stupid mistakes they're making. Drugs are 10 times worse than where they were back in the day when we were doing it. Come on now, you got kids huffing nitric oxide, whatever that balloon is, bro. Weird stuff. Kids are going to be kids, teens are going to be teens, young adults are going to be young adults. It is what it is. But for drug dealers like them, especially if it's Mexican drug cartel associates getting busted in the United States working for Mexican drug cartels, I think the penalty should be harsh. Make the war on drugs really that serious. So these Mexican drug cartels they probably won't think twice about it because they don't ever step foot in American soil anyways. But if we start going after them in Mexico and busting them and extraditing them to the United States, then the penalties will be the same as any other drug dealer across the United States. You want to sell drugs, especially if it's drugs that got some people killed, especially if it's drugs that you sold got some people killed on the streets that overdose and they can link it to one of the same, even if they can't link it. You selling fentanyl or you selling any form of substance and it has fentanyl in it, bro, that should be an automatic life sentence. That should be a death sentence. That should be a death penalty. per se, and that is my personal opinion. But anybody can talk. We could talk this through in the comment section. I'm all for it. We could talk this through in the comment section, and everybody, I really want you to express your opinion on this because this really matters. This is my personal opinion. But, you know, that can go for gang murders now because for the past 20, 30 years, man, nothing's changed. Things have gotten worse and worse and worse. Gangs are killing each other at higher rates. It's not like how it used to be, how everybody says. Drugs are 10 times more potent than what they used to be, like everybody says. Well, then the law needs to change. The law needs to be more effective and more severe. So start sending reminders out to people like, your homie just got busted for a gang murder. I'm not even going to play around with this case. He can give me the biggest defense he wants, but we find him guilty, bro, that's death. That's life sentences. Period. LWOP. I'm not giving you 24 years. I'm not giving you 30 years so the law can bend its will and find little loopholes so we can let him out a little bit later. No, you want to murder somebody? The same way you took a life, you don't get to have your life anymore. That is life without the possibility of parole. Don't even ask me to appeal. Don't even ask me to change the laws in the future and ask me if it applies to you. Don't ask. You kill somebody over a gang murder, that's a life sentence. And I feel that way about a lot of charges, but drug offenses, like I said, I've never been a drug dealer. I've used them. I've never really tried to sell them. I've seen people do it. They don't even get a lot of time. I mean, look at the brother and sister. They're looking at 24 years for selling 50 pounds of fentanyl, where a single dose could have killed one resident in Los Angeles. So like you're basically killing all Los Angeles with one single dose. You can get one single dose, spread it out to every person in Los Angeles, and kill them right then and there. That's how much they got caught with. And you mean to tell me they're only facing 24 years? That's it? And what, all that money, $14 million, that was just the one they got busted with. They've been doing that for almost 2 years. And the Imperial Valley drug bust, what sparked the investigation is they had a lot of wiretaps on a lot of people. But they had a sub-distributor that was from California, that was from Imperial Valley, that was picking it up from the distributor and redistributing it himself. And they actually summoned him to Mexico to talk to him, and they had a meeting and they murdered him in Mexico. That's what I guess pissed the DEA off and the ATF off. We're like, oh, no, so that's what you're doing now? Now you're luring American citizens that are selling for you. You're luring them to Mexico with these lies and fairy tales to meet the boss, and you're murdering them. Not another DEA agent type of thing, right? So, and that's what made them just finally say, all right, we got enough wiretaps to start busting these dudes. And busted 22 defendants. But it took a murder of an American person that was involved with cartel connects and selling drugs for the Narcos to go to Mexico and get murdered. And that's when you're like, got to put our foot down. Nah, we should start putting our foot down now and from here on out. You're selling drugs, especially fentanyl, I think it should come with the death penalty case. I think it should come with a life sentence. No 10, 20, 30 years. No slaps on the wrist no more. Because that's the one thing these Mexican drug cartels fear the most, is that they don't want to get busted in the United States and do life in prison. Because they know life in prison in the United States, 80% of the time, you ain't coming home. At least in Mexico, they can break out. They can live good. They can live like they're still in their streets. They're just protected behind gates. They can pay off cops. They can bring in guns. They can bring in drugs. They can bring in prostitutas, whatever. Muñecas. They can live like that. You ain't going to get that kind of living condition here in the United States. So why not? If we're going to charge them in our court of law, let's charge them to the highest extent of the law. Life. You want to take a life? You don't deserve a life. We're going to take your life. That is just my honest opinion. But let's have this debate. Let's have this topic. Let's have this discussion in the comment section. I would really like to know your guys' opinions on these two matters. So with that being said, like I always say, is one life, one chance. We only got one chance to do this right. Let's get it done. Peace.